Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is Stephen Nehrenz with This Week in Weather.
Hey everyone, Meteorologist Stephen Nehrenz here. Welcome to This Week in Weather from the News on 6 digital studios. This is episode, 6, I believe. This Week in Weather, I'm starting to lose count already on this Tuesday, June 10th. As always, thank you so much for joining me as we kind of go through kind of a recap of the last several days. Every week so far that I've been doing this, there's been significant weather to recap from the past week. And guess what there is? Once again, we're also going to kind of talk about what's ahead of us as the very persistent spring storm pattern that we've been on tries to ease up, and we try to ease our way into summertime over a gradual period here over the next, frankly, few weeks. But guess what? There's still more storm chances on the way this week. Shocker, right? So we'll talk about that in just a second. Of course, starting off as we always do, again, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions about what you'd like to hear discussed a little more on This Week in Weather, you know where to find me, my email address, my Facebook page. And also, if you want to comment on these videos as they get posted on our News on 6 YouTube channel, I've been reading those comments on a weekly basis. We've also been, our digital team has been posting occasionally some polls or some posts kind of in the post section of our YouTube channel where folks can give suggestions about what they want to hear. One of which I couldn't get to last week, was a question about EF-5 tornadoes in the United States, because there haven't been any in a while. And I'm going to have an explanation about why that has been the case. So that'll be coming later on here in just a few minutes in this portion of This Week in Weather. But again, if you have any questions, comments, you know where to find me. Okay, let's get back into another recap of the last week or so. And like I said, shocker, we had quite a bit more rain across green countries. We started off the month of June. In fact, this is kind of first week and a half here, the first week and a half of June. You can see those rainfall totals. Again, quite a lot of rain. Now, why they're ranging, this is how it always is. It's the localized totals. So, officially in Tulsa, a range of 2 to 3 inches. I know your backyard rain gauge may have had a lot more. That's just kind of how it happens. Highly localized over location. Northern counties, well, let me back up and say that everyone's had more soaking rains over the last about week and change. Anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 inches of rain has been pretty common. But over 4 inch totals have been in many spots in our northern counties in particular. That's what I was leading to. North of Tulsa is where we've really been soaked to start off the month of June. Already over 6 inches of rain up around Bartlesville and Copan, pretty close to that in Veneta and up around Sedan, Kansas as well, to start off the month of June, which of course is just coming off of the tail end of a record wet April and an extremely wet May. Still going to be some more chances to come. How about this statistic? We've been talking about all these rainfall statistics through spring and how way above normal we've been. Here's another stat to lay on you. So this is for Tulsa specifically, but really, this does the how far above normal we've been applies to a lot of us, but specifically in Tulsa, the average amount of rain that we would pick up in April, May, and through the first week and a half of June, 11.65 inches of rain, which is a lot. We've had just over 22 inches of rain, not too far from 2 feet of rain, just since the beginning of April. That's close to twice as much rain as we would normally pick up, close to 10.5 inches above normal. That is just so much water at any time of the year. Springtime in particular, if we're twice as much rain as we would normally pick up in spring, long story short, that's a ton of water. Also means, spoiler alert, the further we get into this month and the further down the line into the summer, that just means there's a ton of moisture left over, obviously, which means there's going to be a lot of muggy days ahead of us heading into summer. I know that's no surprise. And once again, an update on those lake levels. I know it's been kind of a tough go. I'll go full screen on this so you can see all the numbers. And it's been a tough go for lake goers so far here this early summer because those lake levels haven't always been the best to be out at the lakes. These are numbers, again, these are the lake level elevations as of, we're recording this on June 10th. So as you know, these will start to fluctuate. The good news is that many of them are starting to now fall again because there are a lot of big time water releases being done from the majority of these lakes. But look at these elevations. Keystone, 20 feet above normal. Fort Gibson, 17.5 feet above normal. Caw, 23 feet above normal. Hudson, 10.5 feet above normal. That is way up there. And then, Eufaula, 8 feet above that for Lake Eufaula. That's a significant height above normal. again, these will be falling in the days ahead. Several are already, but we've been kind of saying it all spring and heading into early summer. Once again, if you're making lake plans over the next several days heading into the weekend, be careful, check ahead, because with the lake levels as high as they've been, that can cause hazards of its own, whether it's for, floating or tubing or boating, skiing, whatever you're going to be doing on the lake. When the lake levels are as high as they've been, obviously that can be pretty hazardous for us. The hope would be that we get through into the next few weeks of June, the rainfall becomes less steady and less heavy, and we'll get a chance for those lakes to more steadily fall and not keep climbing again. It's like every time we've made progress on those lake levels dropping, they just have been climbing again because of our extremely soggy spring. Also, we've had more tornadoes over the last several days, as you're aware, especially at the end of last week, June 6th and June 7th. That was Friday and Saturday of last week. We had several tornadoes here in eastern Oklahoma. There were more down in central and southern Oklahoma as well. All of those are continuing to be surveyed by the National Weather Service, who's just been, again, so busy doing these surveys for weeks now with the tornadoes going back into May. It's been a lot of hard work for them. They're continuing to work really, really hard on getting these finalized. So again, these are kind of the preliminary ratings on the tornadoes that were here in eastern Oklahoma specifically at the end of last week. And again, even after recording this over the next day or two, there will be more updates on these ratings. Max should be another tornado or two added in. Those tornadoes on Friday, June 6th, there were several in Sequoyah County, near Vian, near Sallisaw. In fact, there may have actually been, according to the Weather Service, 2 tornadoes near Sallisaw that Friday morning of the 6th. Roland as well. Those were all so far rated as EF-1 tornadoes. Again, still could be some minor changes to that. And then on June 7th, that Saturday morning, we had a tornado in Cherokee County that spun up rapidly on the south side of Tahlequah near Park Hill that went to the southeast. So far, an EF-1 rating on that tornado. The McAllister tornado from McAllister to Krebs that did cause some notable damage in parts of downtown McAllister, Old Town, and then over towards Krebs. Damage survey, again, as of recording this right now, damage survey is still underway, so there's no official rating on that one yet, but there will be as we go through the week. And like I said, I'm just counting the ones in eastern Oklahoma here. There were more often in northwest Arkansas and more into central and southern Oklahoma at the end of last week and last weekend as well. So again, the busy end of spring continues. All right, so I mentioned that there was a question from a viewer a week or two ago asking, so there haven't been any EF-5 tornadoes in the United States for quite a few years now. Why is that? Well, just, an update on when was the last one. It was a very notable one, and unfortunately, one that we'll never forget in Oklahoma, a very sad one. May 20th, 2013, that EF-5 tornado that hit Moore, Oklahoma, south side of Oklahoma City as well, that unfortunately caused 24 fatalities, had winds over 200 miles per hour, was over a mile wide along its path. That is the last EF-5 tornado that's been officially registered in the United States. There have been quite a few EF-4 tornadoes since then, but again, the question was, okay, so why haven't there been any EF-5 tornadoes over the past, this is, dozen years now, since 2013 out of 2025? What's the reasoning why? Well, one of a few reasons is the discussion was this, is this natural causes type things, or is this because of, how storm surveys have evolved over the years? And specifically over the past about, 20 years or so, those storm surveys and the Fujita scale, which is what it's the tornado rating scale, right? That's how tornadoes are rated by how much damage they cause, which gives also the wind estimate by how much damage they cause. That Fujita scale goes all the way back to the pioneer Ted Fujita from decades ago. That scale was revised about 20 years ago or so, maybe a little less than 20 years ago. And that's, so that's why if you've seen tornadoes that go way back decades ago, it was, F1, F2, F3, now it's EF1, EF2, EF3, all the way up to EF5 for enhanced Fujita scale, because there were changes made to that scale over the years as the folks that do these damage surveys got much better, able to refine what kind of damage these tornadoes do cause and what the wind estimates are with that. All that to be said, as you can see on the screen, I'll go full screen again, and so it's easier to read. There have been some studies about this as well from folks at NOAA, National Severe Storms Lab, and a few other folks that talked about, again, the lack of EF-5s since 2013, and as you see on the screen, the talk about it is likely due to changes in those tornado surveying practices, and how specifically the complete destruction of a home is handled. That's kind of one of the key indicators for an EF-5 when a home, is essentially wiped clean off, nothing's left but the slab type deal. And there's still, refinements being made to even that enhanced Fujita scale, the one that we work with today. And as those changes are being made here, even in the last few years, a lot of that research, kind of suggests that again, the way that surveys are being handled is leading to less EF-5s being rated, tornadoes being rated EF-5, because of how some adjustments have been made in how those surveys are rating damage to a home, complete destruction to a home. I know that was kind of a long-winded way to say that's why there have been officially no EF-5 tornadoes since 2013. But again, science, right? There's continually, new adjustments being made, refinements being made, even to the EF scale as we know it right now, which, down the line, as adjustments and refinements are made to that, will we start seeing some subtle changes in how tornadoes are rated? Certainly is a possibility, but that is the kind of the cause of why there officially hasn't been one since 2013. But of course, as you know, there have been numerous extremely damaging and violent tornadoes across the United States since then. All right, back to where we're headed over the next several days. So as you're well aware, it's just been kind of an endless stream, it seems like, for weeks on end of these powerful upper-level storm systems off to our west in a kind of a pretty strong upper-level jet stream that will ride up from the west coast over the Rockies into the southern and central plains. Strong upper-level flow, and it's been bringing us not only storm chances, but severe weather chances as well. Look off to our south and west, look at that. Another storm system heading our way. Few key differences, though. This is a slow-moving storm system. It's already been pulling quite a bit of moisture up into portions of Texas, down into Texas, central, southern Texas. They need the rain badly. I mean, like really, really badly. So it's compared to what we need. So they're starting to see those storm chances evolving through the first half of this week. But as I walk you through the jet stream flow, I'll go full screen again so you can see a little bit better. As I walk you through that jet stream flow, big picture here, through the rest of the week, that storm system off to our west comes sliding back in. Here's one of the key differences, though, about our severe weather chances maybe not being as high and as persistent as they've been the last several weeks. The upper level wind flow this time around is quite a bit weaker. So this will be a slow moving system, which unfortunately leads to several more days of rain chances mid to late week into the first half of the weekend. As you notice, from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that system just kind of sits and spins right on top of Oklahoma and Texas. But as I mentioned, the upper level wind flow is quite a bit weaker. So generally that leads to less chance for organized severe weather, less wind shear in the atmosphere to work with. That doesn't mean we won't have severe storms. In fact, we could have a few at times, especially as we head into Thursday, Friday, maybe even Saturday, as the system sits and spins and drops in some heavy and strong storms, but less of a chance or less of a likelihood of the kind of organized severe weather threats that we've seen over the last several weeks, which is certainly good news. By the tail end of the weekend, it looks like that system moves away. You see that H on the screen there? That's an upper level ridge. And this time of year, that's kind of the heat dome that's trying to build. As we get further into the summer, that ridge starts to really dominate the weather pattern, not only here in Oklahoma, but across a lot of the country, pushes that jet stream flow further north, shuts down the meaningful rain storm chances, really cranks up the heat. It's trying to exert its influence here as we head into next week. It starts to strengthen, it starts to get a little bit closer, just not quite in that heat dome mode quite yet. There will still be chances for storm systems to kind of ride around the edge of that upper level ridge even next week, which means, again, there'll still be some kind of unsettled weather patterns at times, still chances for storms to move on through over the next several days. But again, here's a look at those kind of overall kind of daily severe weather threats. Not extremely high. Again, not zero technically, but not the same kind of organized severe weather threats that we've had that have been plaguing us for a lot of April and a lot of May. And of course, this is typically what we expect as we get into June. This is fairly, common for the jet stream to start acting this way. The upper level flow weakens some. We still have storm chances, but it's less of an organized severe weather threat. And that's where we're trending over the next several days. So it looks like Thursday and Friday in particular of this next storm system, probably the wettest days ahead of us. Now there will be some heavy rain. And like I said, there could be some strong to severe storms embedded in there at times, just maybe not as organized severe weather as we've had recently, but it's still some, at times, kind of damaging downburst winds would be possible with the strongest storms, but we would trend towards mainly kind of those heavy rainfall threats. Speaking of which, the potential additional rainfall over the next 7 days, this goes for the rest of the week into the weekend. More heavy rainfall expected. I think especially southeastern Oklahoma could easily be another 2 to 3 inches of rain with this system from the second half of the week through the weekend. The further north you head, north of Tulsa, those rainfall amounts and potentials start to get a little bit lower, maybe on the order of another inch of rain. Of course, as you're well aware at this point, really most areas, well, all areas, don't really need another drop of rain. It's not taking much effort for things to flood at all. So still need to be cautious of that. I think especially Thursday into Friday, that heavy rainfall potential will go back up. And as we go into the weekend outlook here, I think if you're planning ahead for the weekend, like I said, I think Friday in particular is when rainstorm chances are going to be most likely to kind of impact some of your outdoor plans. Saturday into Sunday, there's a chance that that storm system starts to kind of lose its influence by Saturday and Sunday, with storm chances becoming a little bit spottier. Of course, Sunday, Father's Day, by the way, just a friendly reminder. And as that happens, of course, the trade-off is going to be as soon as the storm chances diminish, the warmth, or really the heat and humidity, start to crank up a little bit. So I think Friday in particular, well, Thursday, but speaking for the weekend, Friday, rain storm chances will still be fairly high. Saturday, Sunday, they're still a little bit up in the air. As of now, it appears that those chances should gradually diminish as we head into the weekend. All right, one more thing I want to mention before we kind of wrap things up here. I just mentioned, and I know this is no surprise, as the storm chances eventually hit a downward trend, that means the heat climbs, so does the humidity. This happens a lot when we have a very wet spring like we've just had, is that as the heat climbs and the storm chances go away, boy, the humidity just takes off because there's just so much moisture in the soil right now. It's going to take weeks and weeks for all of that to really, settle and then eventually dry out. And eventually what happens is as we get those sunnier, hotter days and drier days, we have what's called evapotranspiration. So that moisture that's in the ground at the surface starts getting back up into the atmosphere, leads to those familiar summertime muggies building. You can see the muggy meter on the screen. This is where we talk about those dew points and how they influence how it feels outside. Dew points in the 60s as we head into summer, that's noticeable humidity, but I'd say that's like manageable, reasonable. Dew points 70 and above, yeah, that's when it starts getting pretty doggone muggy. And look where we're headed over the next several days, from late week into the weekend, potentially beyond. Dew points in the 70s become a little bit more of a daily occurrence. That means the heat index starts to climb. I'm jumping ahead here several days, but again, this would be as the storm chances start to gradually diminish by the tail end of the weekend. This is what that increase in the muggies means. It just means, more of that sticky feeling outside. Also means that the heat kind of gets to you more quickly as you're, maybe, playing outside, working outside, whatever you're doing, exerting yourself. The heat can get to you more quickly when it's this muggies it's about to get. This would be by the end of the weekend, by Father's Day Sunday. That would push heat index values into the mid to upper 90s. By the beginning of next week, that could push the heat index up around 100 for our, again, next Monday. So, yeah. There's more of that headed our way. That's just kind of how it works this time of year. And the trade-off of us saying, okay, we need a break from the storms is, well, here comes the heat and humidity. So that's what's headed down the line. But again, as I emphasized, there are still several more chances for rain and storms headed our way for mid to late week with less of a severe weather chance, but more of a heavy rainfall threat. All right, that is it for this week in weather. Once again, as I mentioned off the top, you know where to find me if you got questions or comments about things that you would like to see discussed here on This Week in Weather from the Digital Studio, News on 6 Digital Studio, excuse me. And again, we are really enjoying bringing this to you, and hopefully this is, as I continue to say, something that is informational for you, something that you enjoy. And we will as we head further into the summer, we'll have more things to discuss. Eventually, here's my hope, is that we get into the summer and there's less severe weather threats to discuss on a weekly basis, right? But like I said, there'll be more heat to discuss the further we get down the line. We'll get there, right? All right, that's it for this week in weather. Folks, be good to each other, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma's own digital studio live stream from the Bob Mills Weather Center. Stay with News on 6 online and on television anytime for the latest weather updates to keep you safe and informed.